How much does it really cost for Canadians to visit Disney World and Universal Orlando in 2026? As I'm sure you know, a Disney and Universal vacation can be pricey. You may have seen some Americans talking about cost breakdowns, but once you add flights from Canada, exchange rates, travel insurance, and everything else, the numbers can change pretty quickly. So if you're a Canadian looking to book a trip to visit the Orlando theme parks in 2026, maybe looking to take in the Halloween or Christmas festivities, stay tuned because we're going to break down our complete budget for our next trip. Everything from food, flights, hotels, souvenirs, even Uber rides, and show exactly where we're going to save some money and places we're going to splurge a bit. If you're planning an Orlando vacation from Canada, this is the video that I wish I had before I booked my first trip. Every dollar we're going to spend is going to be right here. Before we get going, I want you to guess how much you think this vacation will cost. Leave your guesses in the comments before we get to the end, and we'll see just how close you are. First up, let's talk about who this budget is for. The cost for this trip that I'm going to be budgeting out will be for a childless couple from Alberta. Ryan and I don't have kids, so we only have to worry about ourselves. If you are traveling with kids, just remember you're going to have to add in a few extra bucks for things like extra park tickets and food. But the cost for the hotels and Ubers potentially won't change depending on your party size. Here we're looking at a 9-day trip, but I'll break everything down into daily costs and into weekly costs. We're going to be hitting up both Walt Disney World Resort and Universal Orlando Resort this trip, because I'm going to be real with you. Both resorts are incredible in their own rights, and you're missing out if you're only doing one. I'll put rough costs for food, souvenirs, and transportation in here from what we've spent during our last couple trips. This will at least give you a baseline of what to expect. I want to note that this is not a luxury trip where we're going all out, but we're also not slumming it. I like to think we're pretty average people who will be doing what most average couples or families will be doing on their Disney or Universal trips. That said, there are obviously ways that you can vastly increase the cost of your trip and ways you can decrease the cost based on certain logistics. But this budget breakdown will at least give you a starting point of what to expect. First up, let's look at how to get to Orlando. As I mentioned, we're from Alberta, so we will definitely be flying to Orlando. We like to fly WestJet. One, they seem to have decent flight times to get us to Orlando with minimal layovers. And two, I have a WestJet MasterCard, so I'm able to build up WestJet points through my daily spending over the year, and I can put these towards my flights to save a few bucks. This card also gives me a yearly companion voucher as well, so I can book Ryan's flights for only $119 plus taxes. When booking flights, I always look at the time that we're going to be arriving in Orlando first, and then I take into account when the flights actually depart. The older I get, the more I don't want to be taking a red eye. It's very rare to find direct flights from Edmonton, the airport we fly out of, so I try to look for flights with only one layover, usually in either Toronto or Calgary. When looking at flights, I try to find a layover of no less than about an hour and a half, but no more than 3 hours. This will allow us to disembark, blast through security and customs, and then make it to our next gate for our international flight without having to wait around for too long. For return flights, I look first at the departure time because I like to spend as much time as possible at the parks on the last day of vacation. But I also looked at flights with reasonable times because I don't want to be spending forever in airports just waiting to get home. One thing to always think about when booking flights is baggage fees. With my WestJet MasterCard, I get one checked bag for free for up to 8 people on my reservation. But if you don't have this option or you're looking at checking multiple bags, the cost will be around $50 to $90 per bag. So always remember to add that cost in. For us, we like to check one big bag and then our other bag is a carry-on. If I'm being honest, we don't need the checked big bag for clothes, but we like to have a little extra space for any souvenirs we might pick up on our trip. And lastly, it is always pertinent to look into paying for seat selection. Now, personally, I hate having to pay for seats. The only time I've ever actually paid for seats is one time when we had a layover of like an hour or an hour and 10 minutes. So I booked some seats at the front of our first flight so that we could book it off to get to security and customs first and actually make it through them. Normally, I just wait to select seats on our check-in day, and you can normally find decent seats in that time that will still allow you enough time to get through security and customs. This way, it'll save you about $40 or more depending on what seat you're looking to reserve. If you have the freedom to go whenever you like, it's best to keep your eyes peeled for flight deals and book when you catch a deal. For our upcoming trip, we wanted to go for the Halloween festivities, but our dates were quite open. We found the best deals for flights in September, so that's what we based our trip around. Our flights ended up being $1,088 for the two of us, which is for one full-priced flight and one companion voucher flight. I also had $291 worth of WestJet points, plus we got our free checked baggage, so the price I ended up paying for our upcoming flights was only $797, which works out to just $399 each. Keep in mind that there are certain variables that can change the cost of your flight. One variable is the seat type you choose. We fly economy, but if you like to fly extended comfort or premium, your flight price is going to increase dramatically. Also, the time of year that you go will have some effect. As I mentioned, we're going in September, which is nice because it includes the Halloween festivities, but it is on the cheaper side because kids just started school and there are no big holidays in the middle of the month. If you're going during school holidays, you may find the flight prices are a bit higher, but if you keep your eye on the dynamic pricing, you should still be able to find decent prices. Next up, let's look at some hotels. I personally prefer to stay in a hotel as opposed to an Airbnb for a couple of reasons. One, I'm lazy and I'm on vacation. I like having someone make my bed for me and I don't want to think about having to keep a house clean and organized. And two, I like staying on property. Though this will bump the price of the hotels up a little, it vastly increases the convenience of the trip. But wait, what does staying on property mean? It means that we like to stay right on the Walt Disney World Resort or right on the Universal Orlando Resort. Staying on property puts you much closer to the parks, gives you certain perks, which I'll go over shortly, and it allows you to save some money because you can use the free transportation to get around the resorts, so there's no need for excessive Ubers. Since we're going to be going to both Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando, we like to split our time between a Walt Disney World and a Universal hotel. Let's go over the Disney World hotels first. There are 3 levels to Disney World hotels: value, moderate, and deluxe. The price and perks go up as you move up the levels. The value resorts range from about 150 to 250 Canadian per night. At this level, you get early park entry, which is where you get to enter the theme parks about 30 minutes early during your stay. Plus, you get to purchase and book your Lightning Lane 7 days in advance instead of the 3 days when you're staying at an off-site hotel. The moderate resorts range from about 300 to 500 Canadian per night. You get the same perks as the value resorts, but the hotels are a big step up. Also to note, the buses for the moderate resorts are a lot less busy than the value resorts, making your stay less hectic. The deluxe resorts are usually about 500 Canadian plus, but you can find some amazing deals every once in a blue moon. At the deluxe resorts, you get the same perks as the value and moderate resorts, but you also get the big perk of extended evening hours at the parks, which allows you to stay in certain parks for an extra 2 hours after the park technically closes. We got to experience this at Hollywood Studios last year, and I gotta say,
it was awesome.
For our upcoming trip, we're staying at the Walt Disney World Dolphin Hotel, which is technically a Marriott hotel, not actually a Disney hotel, but it is on property, situated right between Hollywood Studios and Epcot. The nice part about this hotel is it counts as a deluxe hotel, so we get to take advantage of the extended evening hours at Epcot during our trip. Like I mentioned, deluxe resorts are always the most expensive, but keep your eyes peeled. I found us a deal that allows us to stay at the Dolphin for a grand total of 1,314 Canadian for 4 days, all taxes and fees included, which breaks down to just 329 Canadian per night. Then, when we switch over to the Universal Parks, we're also going to be switching to a Universal hotel. Like Disney, Universal has different rankings for their hotels as well. They have value, prime value, and signature. Value resorts range from about 130 to 300 Canadian per night. Staying at these resorts allows you to have early park admission, which means you can enter select parks 1 hour before regular opening. You have the ability to pay for food and merch across the resort with your room key, and you can also get merchandise purchases made in the parks sent back to your hotel lobby. Prime resorts range from about 130 to 350 Canadian per night, and you get the same perks as the value resorts. The nice part about these hotels is that they're just a little bit calmer than the value resorts. The signature hotels can be about 300 plus Canadian per night. You get the same perks as the other tiers, but one massive perk is that you also get unlimited express passes for every person staying in your room for the duration of your stay. Given that express can be about $180 per person per day of your visit, if you were looking at getting this anyways, it's a no-brainer to stay at a signature hotel. A quick note, this express perk is not active for stays at Helios Grand and at Sapphire Falls. Something to consider. For this trip, we're staying at Aventura, one of the prime value hotels. We picked this hotel for a couple of reasons. It's a quiet hotel, it's only about a 5-ish minute walk to Volcano Bay, and it's right across the street from Sapphire Falls, so we have the choice to use the free buses at Aventura or the water taxi from Sapphire without having to pay the Sapphire prices. Now, I'll be honest, because we go to Orlando a decent amount and we love Universal, we have annual passes for Universal Orlando, so we get a pass holder rate on our hotel stays. For this visit, we have Aventura booked for 5 nights at $16.88 Canadian, which works out to about $338 Canadian a night. It's obviously the easiest to book right from the Disney or Universal sites, but keep your eyes peeled on some of those hotel deal sites like Kayak, Trivago, Hotels.com, or any of the other ones. They can find you some great rates. For this trip, we booked our Universal hotel right from the Universal site, but we booked our Disney hotel from one of those booking sites. It's also key to note that no matter if you're booking third party or right from Disney or Universal, to keep checking the hotel rates as it leads up to your trip, because hotel prices can fluctuate and you may find a better deal. When I first booked our stay at Aventura, I booked it for 1,914 Canadian, but from checking back over the weeks, I found the price dropped to what I have it at now, the $16.88. And if you're paying attention, that means I've saved $226 Canadian so far. I will also keep checking back on the price in case I can save even more as we get closer to our trip. Now, you may be asking, what would be the price if you did stay off-site? Well, we used to stay off-site, having stayed at a few of the hotels on International Drive. These hotels did save us money, having rates from around 100 to 150 Canadian per night. But you also have to take into account the Ubers that you'd have to take to and from the parks, plus the inconvenience of being so far away from the parks. Some of these hotels do have free shuttles to the parks, but we always found the shuttle times a bit inconvenient. And if you miss the shuttle, well then you're forced to Uber anyways. We find that paying a little bit extra upfront to stay on property, but then not having to worry about any Ubers is totally worth it. Plus, on those long, hot park days, it's so nice to be on property and to have the opportunity to head back to the hotel in the middle of the day to relax for a bit before going back to the parks for the evening. You don't get this when you're staying off-site unless you want to spend even more on more Ubers. It took us a few years to figure this out, but I mean it when I say it is worth it to spend that little bit more to stay on property. So, we've talked about flights and hotels, now let's talk about the park tickets. The parks are the purpose of this whole trip, and they are some of the biggest costs of the trip as well. The annoying part about the tickets is they can be super variable on price based on either the date or the amount of days you're going. As with flights and hotels, if you go at less busy times, the tickets will probably be slightly less expensive. And if you go for more days, the price per day will go down, but the overall cost will obviously go up. Since we're going to Walt Disney World first, let's talk about Walt Disney World park tickets. We are doing 4 days at Disney this trip, and because we're going in September, the ticket prices are less than they would be during busy season. A 4-day ticket for when we're going runs for about 500 American a ticket or 720 Canadian. Now, since we don't get the chance to visit a ton, we like to take full advantage of our trip, so we like to add on the park hopper option. This allows us to switch between the parks on all 4 days, so we can take advantage of good wait times all over the resort. With park hopper added on, this would bring the tickets up to 585 American a ticket, or 842 Canadian. Kinda pricey, right? Well, it's always important when looking at ticket prices to see if there's any special offers on at the moment. Right now, there just happens to be a Canada resident ticket deal to give us Canadians a little break on our wallets. For when we're going, this reduces the 1 park per day ticket cost to 400 American a ticket, or 576 Canadian, and a park hopper ticket to 468 American a ticket, or 674 Canadian. For us, our 4-day Canada resident ticket with park hopper option added on will save us about $168 Canadian per ticket, which is some fantastic savings. For our Universal tickets, first I'll take you through what is available on the Universal website. Right now, Universal has an offer for a 3-day ticket with 2 days free, so you can get 5 days for 438 American a ticket, or 631 Canadian. The nice part about this ticket is it is a park-to-park ticket, allowing you to visit all of Universal's parks, including their new park Epic Universe and their water park Volcano Bay as much as you want. For our upcoming visit, because we have annual passes, our Universal tickets would break down to about 430 Canadian per person for 5 days. If you're looking to visit Universal Orlando for more than one visit in a year, it could be worth it for you to get an annual pass. Not only will you save on tickets, but it also gives you discounts on hotels, merch, and food. On that same note, because we go to Universal Orlando so much, we don't get express passes. We would rather save that money and just wait in lines. But if you are wanting to get an express pass, I would stay at a Universal Signature hotel to get a nice stay and save money on the passes. On the flip side, since we don't visit Walt Disney World as much as we do Universal Orlando, we do usually get Lightning Lanes for our visits. Lightning Lane is what FastPass used to be, but now Disney charges for it. But Lightning Lanes are much more reasonably priced compared to Universal's Express Passes, so we don't mind spending a little bit extra to save us some time in the parks. Lightning Lane Multipass varies in price by the day and by the park, but we will say it costs about $30 American per person per day, or about 43 Canadian. So for 4 days at the parks, this is about 172 Canadian per person extra. If you're staying on property, you get to book your Lightning Lane 7 days in advance, giving you first dibs on all of the available times. So it can definitely be worth it to utilize your time in the parks. Now that we've talked about our main tickets, let's also look at some special event tickets that you might want to add on. Both Walt Disney World and Universal have world-class Halloween events that are an additional cost, and Disney also has certain Christmas events that are separately ticketed events. Do you need to do these events? No, but they are wonderful and they really get you into the spirit of the holidays. The Disney events can up your park ticket budget by 200 Canadian plus per person, and the Universal Halloween Horror Night tickets can be about 110 Canadian plus per person, so be prepared to have room in the budget for these if you do choose to buy them. Okay, now that we've gone over the meat of the trip, that being the flights, hotels, and park tickets, let's go over those costs that most people don't even think about but can really add up. First up, I mentioned that we like to stay on site because then we don't have to worry about Ubers. Well, we do have to pay for a few Ubers in the entirety of our trip. 3 to be exact. 1 from the airports to Walt Disney World, because that's where we're going to be starting our trip. 1 from Walt Disney World to Universal, and 1 from Universal back to the airport. These Ubers will be roughly about $50 Canadian from the airport to Walt Disney World, about $40 Canadian from Walt Disney World to Universal, and about $40 Canadian from Universal back to the airport, giving us a grand total of $130 Canadian to add on to our trip. Food is one variable that will add up quite quickly on your trip. The one downside to staying on property is that you are at the mercy of the parks for your meals during the duration of your stay. If you're able to stop by like a Target or Walgreens or something on the way to your resort, it's always nice to pick up a loaf of bread and some sandwich fixins to make you some cheap lunches that you can have in the parks. We do this when we can, but for this upcoming trip, I think we're just going to be staying on the resort and eating on property. Now, I'll preface this by saying that Ryan and I are not foodies and we don't really care where we eat. We don't usually do many sit-down restaurants, usually just grabbing quick service items throughout our stay. Sit-down restaurants are always more expensive, with costs starting about $25 American per person or $36 Canadian, and that's usually not counting drinks or a tip. So a sit-down meal for the two of us will usually hit us for a minimum of $60 American or $85 Canadian, which can add up very quickly. On the flip side, quick service items will usually be about $15 American per person or $22 Canadian, and sometimes we just share an item because the portion sizes can be quite large. For the sake of argument, let's say that we will spend about $20 Canadian each for breakfast, $20 Canadian each for lunch, and $30 Canadian each for dinner. That will work out to $70 Canadian daily per person. So for 9 full days, we're looking at $630 Canadian each. That can be a daunting number, but it's better to prepare for it beforehand than to be caught off guard after. One trick that we like to do is to bring Tupperware containers into the park. Since we aren't huge eaters, we like to save what we don't eat, and then we can have it for like a midnight snack or something later. It definitely helps us save a few bucks here or there. Now, like I said, this is just a rough estimate. If you're a meager eater, you could spend less on food. If you're a big eater or you like sit-down restaurants, it will be easy to spend more than this. Next up, let's talk about souvenirs. It's always fun to bring something home from your trip, and the parks have some great merchandise to always remind you of your trip. It's always a great idea to set a budget for souvenirs and to stick to it. It can be so easy to just go in and blow hundreds of dollars on stuff, and I can guarantee that you will regret it when you get home and see your credit card statement. Like I said, it's fun to bring something home, but you don't have to bring everything home. What I like to do is to check out the merch on my first day in the parks and then think about it for about a day or two. If I still want it on my third or fourth day, then I'll buy it. I usually like to collect drinkware, which will usually be about $25 American or $36 Canadian, and maybe a shirt or something, which will be about $30 American or $43 Canadian. A good budget is about $100 Canadian per person or $70 American. This allows you to get some fun things, and it keeps it at a reasonable amount. I've mentioned this next point actually throughout the whole video, but let's bring it to the forefront. The number one thing that screws us Canadians with these American vacations is the dreaded exchange rate.
Kids, would you step outside for a second?
Right now, $1 American is about $1.42 Canadian. So every price you see, you have to multiply it by 1.42 to get the Canadian equivalent. This goes for the hotels and tickets you're going to buy online, the food you find in the parks, and the merch you're going to be checking out in the stores. It's easy to forget about this when you're in the parks, but it is a rude awakening when you go back and look at your credit card statement. So it's always nice to be aware of it beforehand. Speaking of credit cards, it's nice to put all transactions on credit card because it keeps track of all your purchases and gives you points on your card if you have that type of card. Mine gives me those WestJet points that I can use towards my next trip. But using a credit card will also add a foreign transaction fee. So it takes the exchange rate from about $1.42 to maybe like $1.44 or 45. It's only a couple extra cents per dollar, but when you're spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars, it does add up. It's nice to accumulate points and to keep track of your purchases, but having cash is also a great option to not pay those extra fees. Yes, you'll have to pay a small fee when you take the money out at your bank, but from that point on, you're free to spend your American money as you wish with no repercussions. It can also be nice to pull cash out beforehand because then you can visually see what you're spending, or what you have left, as you go. For my trips, I like to do a bit of both. I like to pull out a little bit of cash and make sure to spend it all because that's the reason I pulled it out, and then use my credit card for either big purchases or when I run out of cash. This way I have less accumulating on my credit card and it gives me the freedom to spend how I want. A side note, there are some instances where card is needed, such as mobile ordering food at the parks and while visiting Volcano Bay. The water park no longer accepts cash, so make sure to have a card with you if you plan on visiting the water park. And I think you should because it's incredible. Okay, let's do a recap of our whole 9-day trip. Our flights, after using our $291 in WestJet points, puts us at $797 Canadian total or $399 each. Our Walt Disney World hotel came to a grand total of $1,314 Canadian, and our Universal hotel came in at $1,688 Canadian, totaling $3,002 Canadian. This splits to $1,501 Canadian each. Our 4-day park hopper Walt Disney World tickets, after taking advantage of the Canada resident offer, comes to a total of $1,390 Canadian after taxes, or $695 Canadian each. Our Universal tickets, with our annual passes, will cost us $860 Canadian total, or $430 Canadian each. If we didn't have annual passes, the 3-day plus 2 days free tickets would run us $1,262 Canadian total, or $631 Canadian each. If we get Lightning Lane Multipass for our 4 days at Walt Disney World, that's an extra $172 Canadian each. Since we're doing Halloween Horror Nights in September, and we're going to be going for multiple nights, we're going to get the Rush of Fear passes. Though these aren't released at the time of making this video, if we use last year's pricing, these will be about $600 Canadian total or $300 Canadian each. Ubers will be a total of $130 Canadian or $65 each. Since we need to eat, our food budget will be about $1,260 Canadian total or $630 each. And our souvenir budget will be about $200 Canadian total or $100 Canadian each. So, how much will our vacation actually cost? Here's the grand total. $8,583 Canadian total, or $4,292 each. A reminder that this is for a 9-day trip. If we were to do this for a 7-day trip, we're looking at $6,676 Canadian total, or $3,338 Canadian each. When looking at your own trip, if you're trying to plan this for more than 2 people, some of these costs won't change, like hotels and Ubers, But some will change, like flights and park tickets. If you're looking at a family of 4, your trip cost would be 14,840 Canadian or 3,710 Canadian each for a 9-day trip, or 11,542 Canadian or 2,886 Canadian each for a 7-day trip. Hopefully this gives you a realistic idea of what an Orlando vacation can cost for Canadians. Everyone plans differently, but hopefully this gives you a rough ballpark if you are thinking about doing one of these trips. So let me ask you, what do you think of this price? Would you spend this for a Disney and Universal trip? Is there anything you would change for your own trip? If you have any questions about budgeting for your own vacation, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to give you a hand with that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the parks.